Welcome to Mom Boss Central. I'm your host, Alexia Hoffman. This podcast is where entrepreneurial moms like you and me come together for real and raw conversations filled with practical tips, genuine stories, and a whole lot of girl power. But it's not just about listening, it's about building a community. If you haven't already, make sure to join at mombosscentral.com. So whether you're sipping on a cup of coffee, pouring yourself a glass of wine, or tuning in on the go, get ready to join the conversation and become part of our supportive Mom Boss Central community. Dr. Orr, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being on. I'll let you introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi, thank you for having me. I am thrilled to be here. I am a doctor of natural medicine, and I work with mostly women on finding their inner knowing and supporting them in finding how physical symptoms that may show up are actually linked to their emotional needs and their energy. We work together through those things to discover what actually is going on. And yeah, that's my work. And I'm also a mom, which is mostly why I'm here with you. I'm a mom of 3. I have 2 stepkids who I've been with since they were 5 and 2, and they're now almost 17 and 14. And my youngest is 5. He just turned 5.
Wow, so amazing. So talk to me, how long have you been in this line of work and how did you get into it?
So I've been in my private practice since I became an instant mom, 12 years now. And I got into energy medicine when I was 18, actually. So I met this woman who kind of took me under her wing. She started teaching me. I was living in New York. I'm living in LA now. I was living in New York. And I had a lot of fears. I was in college studying creative writing, and I had so many just these intense phobias where I couldn't sleep alone. I couldn't sleep in quiet. I couldn't I had to have lights on and the TV running, or I would take the train and I would feel endangered. And so I started working with her on my phobias, and um it very quickly, it was like I got thrown into a whole new world very fast. But this new world that I got thrown into was very familiar to me. I energetically connected to it. Even though I didn't grow up with any of it.
Yeah.
Very quickly into past life work and um and energy in general, auric fields and chakras and the whole thing. And so she kind of took me into a deep dive, and I immersed myself in it. I was just oh my gosh, this makes so much sense to me. I could feel it in my cells.
Yeah.
And so I started working on my phobias with her, and pretty quickly I didn't really have phobias anymore. I could sleep quietly and turn off the light and off the TV. Thank God. Now I can't even stand background noise. TV just drives me crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. And then we just started I just kept wanting to learn more. So then I started learning more, and I found Caroline Mace's work, and I immersed myself in that. It took me on this 6-year journey of just picking up as much information as I could. Yeah. And then I met my love, who lived in LA and had 2 kids and had just gotten divorced. And I ended my 7-year relationship in New York, and I took 6 months off to just kind of figure it out. And I was working, and I had friends, and I had this really amazing 6 month in New York. And then I was one day I got out of my yoga class, and I was like, I am moving. It just hit me. I was like, I am packing up my stuff, and I'm moving to LA.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
How was the transition for you?
It was great.
That is so good to hear. Tell me what it looked like. I mean, you said you had your job in New York.
I was in retail in New York,
Okay.
and I gave myself, I think from the time I made the decision to move until I moved was like, I think a month.
Oh my
And
God.
so I just made, like, I really took that month to like take it all in, like
Yeah.
take the city in
Yeah.
and take my friends in and enjoy that, like the last 30 days.
Yeah.
And I had the best time. And then I packed a suit. Like, I think I moved with one suitcase and then I shipped
Gosh.
a box. And I left. I was really lucky because I got to leave my apartment like as it was to the next person.
Wow.
Um,
That makes it a lot
yeah,
easier.
it
Yeah.
was really nice. Um, and yeah, and I moved, and I always say like leaving New York, like New York felt like swimming upstream.
Mm. Yeah.
Moving to California was just like this easy, I just like felt so sweet.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then when I moved here, I opened my private practice, and my partner, who's now my husband, had two kids and he needed a lot of help. And my like nurturing self was like, I want to help you.
Yeah.
And so I like took them in and I took my clients in and we started the journey of parenting and
Yeah.
working.
Yeah, that's a lot of change all at once to go
Yeah.
from a cross-country move, from being single and then having two kids and a new job in a new location. I can imagine that was definitely a lot of change and just like all kinds of new experiences. So talk to me about like your transition to becoming an instant mom, as you said.
I loved it. It felt very me. I
Mhm.
always wanted to be a mom, so it
Mhm.
felt very me.
Yeah.
It was very easy to take control.
Yeah.
I also was super challenged. So it was like being a parent is the hardest thing, and I wanted to do a good job at it.
Yeah.
And it's like you don't really know what in the you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I can imagine with the ages they were, there would be challenges that were unique to not having the newborn phase to go through or the toddler phase. So, how did you
Ex-
navigate that? What resources or, did you use any resources or how did you kind of acclimate yourself to parenthood?
So I had a support program. I had some support people that I was connecting with, and that helped a lot. So like a lot of like support group work, and then also like just close friends where I would use them as kind of mentors. I will say that I wished I connected more with step parents, that I wish I read more books into my podcasts weren't like
Yeah.
this huge thing as like 12 years
Yeah.
ago weren't this huge thing as they are now, but I wish I used more external resources like that.
Mhm.
um because now, as kind of like what feels like almost like a new parent, I used all those things and I'm still using all those things now, and so it's having tools like that is so helpful. And I was missing those. I was missing the that kind of support.
Yeah, definitely. So, talk to me about what energy medicine is, and for someone who's not familiar, how you said you did a lot of healing with it, but how, when you started your own practice, how it came about and how it was finding clients, explaining what it was, and everything that you went through to get started.
Yes. So energy work is really looking at the body as an energy being, right? So looking past just the physical. The physical is only like 10-14% of really the reality that
Mm,
we experience, even though for us it's like it feels like everything.
yeah,
But
definitely.
really 40% of our existence is the conscious and what I call the supramental body. So it's the energy behind everything is really what creates our physical experience. So doing energy work and being a doctor of natural medicine, I look at a person past the physical into their meridians, their chakras, their auric fields, their archetypes, their energy patterns, and their overall blueprint of like who they are when they first come into this world. And we do use the physical to give us guidance. So the body talks to us all the time, right? So, I mean, I work mostly with women, so we talk a lot about cycles, about how your period is, how, when it comes to getting pregnant, fertility signs, all of those are very, very important in understanding what's going on with us on an energetic level. Because if something is off there, it means something is off energetically. It means something is off in the space between our blueprint and our physical experience. So like if you think about building a house, you have a blueprint design of what you'd like it to look like.
Yeah.
And then you have the end result. But if something isn't working, it tells you there's something off in the in between, right? You need an electrician, you need a plumber, right? You need somebody to come into the like the structure work there.
Yeah.
So that's what I do with my clients is we go into those spaces and we play there, we work there, we see what's off.
Yeah.
A lot of the time it's past childhood stuff, childhood trauma. Sometimes people have already spent a decade in therapy doing, working through their childhood stuff.
Yeah.
And then they're like, well, I mean, I'm having these stomach problems, or, I can't get pregnant, or my period is horrendous. Okay, so what's underneath that? What is causing that to happen?
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll guide people to just listen to their own bodies, right? Like spend 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day laying down and breathe and listen to whatever comes up. Sometimes I read energy.
Okay.
So I'll muscle test. I'll check in. Okay, where is that in the body? Okay, something is off with your lungs. So it's grief related. So let's go to the grief. Is it, okay, probably like 18 years old or 13 years old? What's going on there? Let's go back to that time.
Wow.
And we'll usually hit these certain spots of like, yeah, that's when I lost my puppy, or,
Yeah.
that's when my dad was deported, or, oh my gosh, okay, let's talk to that part of yourself. And
Yeah.
let's work through that part of yourself. And it's incredible to see the changes that happen for women when they do that work, and they'll see it changing in their physical self.
Yeah, that is so interesting to me. So, is reading energy typically the first step, or where does the work begin when someone, first reaches out to you? I'm so curious for myself too, just hearing you talk, like about what that would look like.
Yeah, so I will very quickly, I mean, I don't need much for it. I'll just go, okay, let's read you, right? Like, as long as you're open to it, let's see, where is it? So, like, yeah, for you, it's left lung and back heart. And then yes, you have
Am I blocking?
no, you're good. Because I normally will have, I'll normally have people hold points. I use acupressure as well. So you're putting pressure on there, which is perfect.
Yeah, the baby is doing it for me.
Yeah.
No.
And then you tune in, then you get to participate, right? So part of the difference between the work that I do and like going to like a Reiki session or a craniosacral session is that the work is I'm engaging you. You're coming in with me. I'm not doing something to you or for you.
I'm sorry.
No, don't
Sorry.
ever apologize for your child.
Okay, put that out. So you're saying I'm so sorry.
No,
Did you totally while you were saying that she like spit up full so I was like trying to do it and then I don't know.
She's like repelling that
Oh
line.
my gosh, I will take all that out. I'm so sorry.
That's totally fine. Don't apologize, please. Okay.
Grab a pacifier for her. Really.
Yeah, do your thing.
I'm so sorry because I'm like so into this and I want you to know like how interested I am and I apologize.
Alexia, do not apologize for this. You are amazing that you are here and present and doing, like, holy crap, you're doing this.
Okay. All right. I think we're ready.
Okay. Okay, so where you want me to pick up stuff?
You can even go back to when you were reading, like when you started too.
Yeah, so what I would do is I'll read you, right? And then I will guide you to do the work as well. So I'm not the difference between doing this type of energy work and like going to a Reiki session or a craniosacral session or something where somebody is doing energy work on you is that is more of a passive experience, right? I don't know. Have you ever been to anything like that?
I mean, I know about it through friends who have, but I have not. So
okay. So
I've gone to traditional therapy for, years and years, but I've never gone into energy. And the more I learn, the more interested I am. So hearing you walk me through is really, really interesting.
Yeah. So if you go into your lung space, right? So like left lung and forehead, when we hold points, we hold usually an organ, and the forehead point will activate the emotion connected to that organ. So different organs are connected to different emotions. So the lung is connected to grit, small intestines is connected to like feeling lonely or isolated, low self-esteem, for example. Each organ is connected to different emotions. So if I was reading you, I am reading you because you're letting me, I would do like left lung and forehead, and then your focus goes into the back of your heart. So in the back of your heart, what do you feel there? What do you notice?
I mean, honestly, I feel, am I like the sensation that I'm feeling, or are you saying, is it triggering like memory?
Whatever. Like that's open to interpretation. Yeah.
Yeah, because I do feel like energized. I feel anxious a little too, like nervous, and I just feel elevated, like we said earlier. I feel like that elevation, but inside.
Okay. So if you then go to the front of your solar plexus, so your solar plexus is kind of like at the base of your breast below and then go down. So like the bra line area in the front.
Yeah.
So if you imagine that space and then you imagine opening up a little pipe, a little drain pipe, and breathe out and let go of some of that excess energy. Right? So the way you describe it kind of feels like there's a lot going on in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So open it up and let it drain out. Imagine you're draining out that excess energy. And then breathe and relax your lungs. Good. And then feel your spine drop into your tailbone. And that's how you get grounded. So you're grounding yourself, right? You're coming more into your body. A big pattern that I see and I experience personally as well is that as moms and business owners and like, as people who try to do everything, we are so often out of our bodies.
Yeah.
Because we're trying to be ahead of the game, right? Like we're trying to be like to do all the stuff and then we're losing the groundedness. So just even that simple practice of like inhaling and then taking the breath down your spine, connecting with your tailbone and grounding yourself down there.
Yeah.
So that's your, like when you go all the way down there, it's your first chakra, ground into your first chakra.
Yeah. And I have done grounding in my front yard with my kids.
Amazing. That's perfect. Yeah. Outside, barefoot. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. But to hear you explain like the extra energy, I feel like that makes a lot of sense too, because it feels like butterflies in your stomach, and then imagine like letting that out. It definitely I feel the calm come over me and like the excess leave. So that's so interesting.
Yeah, good. Good. Yeah, and then there would be like other layers, right? So like as you ground and you let go of that excess energy, then you can tap into like, okay, what's underneath there? What else is going on?
Yeah.
Because our bodies are the past, right? We store everything, even things that we don't know that we've stored, right? So like
Yeah.
we can go to talk therapy for decades, like you have. There's stuff that we've blocked out. There's stuff that we consciously didn't even notice, right? Like a lot of the work that I do is also connected to parental nervous systems, right? So if your mom or your dad or whoever raised you, even your siblings, the people you were around, if their nervous systems were off, which most people's nervous systems are off, then you pick that up. You pick that up in utero.
Wow. Yeah.
And there's no way for you to consciously know that unless you're doing that work.
Yeah.
And so you've got to energetically shift that in your own body.
Wow. That's so interesting because hearing you say how much of that we don't realize or, we don't allow ourselves to acknowledge what our body stores, I feel like that's so prevalent for me. I have, very, very few memories of my childhood, just so much that I truly can't remember until I see a picture or, I'll hear my mom will tell me something that happened or, oh, don't you remember? And I just really don't. And my husband has memories so far back. And I mean, even through high school, there's so much that I forgot in college. There's things that I don't remember that, and I wonder like why can't I remember that? It's not like there's a big trauma point that I can tie it to, but for some reason, I just cannot tap into it and I can't remember it. So that's so interesting to hear.
Yeah. Part of the reason that we don't remember that stuff is because it's not necessary.
That makes sense.
There is sometimes it's because we've blocked it out because it's traumatic, right? But like you said, some of the stuff we know isn't valuable.
Yeah.
And so we just kind of like dump it out, and that's totally okay, right? So like there's a New York Times article that I've heard Marianne Williamson talk about, and it's all about aging and how people forget numbers, names, that are like all these things, right? And
Yeah.
it was like a room of experts that were like discussing this and what do we call this and why is it happening, and they all kind of went, it's called wisdom
Because we don't need it anymore.
we don't need this stuff.
That's so funny. Yeah. That is interesting because, there's like so many things and it's like, why don't I remember? Well, why would I remember? Why would I try to remember all these little things? So that's interesting. I've never thought about it like that. I'll have to look up that article that you're referring to because that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
So tell me about what it was like for you getting pregnant and having your child after already being established in your business, after already having gone through your struggles and trials and all of that. And how was it for you already having an established business and then getting acclimated to the newborn phase of life?
Sure. So I loved being pregnant. It was my favorite thing in the whole
I love that. I loved it too. Funny enough.
Yeah.
And a lot of people do not have that experience. Yes,
Right.
yes. But I also loved it. So I understand completely.
Yeah. Yeah. So before I got pregnant, I want to say like 3 or 4 years prior, I started charting my cycle. So I came off birth control. I had a whole like aha moment around that. And it took me even deeper into cycles and deeper into women's health. And my PhD research was around it. And so I came off birth control and I was charting my cycle. So I've been charting my cycle for like 3 or 4 years before I got pregnant. When I got pregnant, I knew I was pregnant right away. because I could see it on the chart. And I was so connected to my body, and my hormones, and my uterus, and like all the things. I loved it all already.
Yeah.
Knowing that now I've created this human was so exciting to me. And I was like,
Yeah.
my God, okay, now I'm going to focus everything I've got on this experience.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I just dove in. Like I dove into the stages of pregnancy and like what labor is going to be like and how to plan it. And I took courses and I really, 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 really enjoyed it and learned so much about my body and my relationship with it and what I like going into like that vision of like what do I want my birth experience and my baby's birth experience to be like.
Yeah.
Was so critical for me because I was terrified of I'd watched The Business of Being Born and highly the Business of Being Born and then The Business of Birth Control, which are both made by Ricky Lake and Abby Epstein.
Wow.
Excellent documentaries.
Okay.
So I knew I did not want a C-section. I wanted like the least amount of intervention possible. And at the same time, my husband had his birth experiences with his kid were very traumatic. So he wanted a hospital birth. He was like, we are having a hospital birth. I don't want to hear anything outside of that. And so my job for myself and my sanity was to find a way to give him what he wants and to give myself what I want and what is super important to both of us and honor both of those.
Yeah.
And I found the best OB who was like the closest thing to a midwife. And it was an incredible birth experience.
Good.
Amazing. Yeah. And during the pregnancy was also a lot of stuff came up for me. Then I noticed affected my parenting of my two kids. And so it forced me to like up my personal work and how I could feel like there was so much rage that came up and so much like this trauma, like I felt PTSD symptoms at some point. And then I realized it wasn't even mine, it was my mom's. And so it was like, and that's like when we talk about like being in utero and being like your mom's nervous system and where that's at and how that affects you. And so then I went in and I did work on that. I worked on being in utero while my mom was having big feelings with her experience and what that was like. And I didn't even know much about it consciously, right? So like I talked to her a little bit about what her pregnancy was like when I realized what was going on for me. But most of it was done kind of behind the scenes with me and my energy worker and covering from that and healing that. It in a concept it's called surrogate work. So in part of the work that I do, there's something called surrogate work where you're doing energy work on behalf of someone else. And you do need permission to do that, but to go in and heal those wounds. And so as energy shifts in someone else, it's actually a study that shows that if you take DNA and you separate it and you move it like it's like East Coast, West Coast, and you adjust the DNA on the East Coast, the West Coast DNA will change.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So how linked we are through our DNA with our parents. Yeah. And when we do this energy work and we're changing our own stuff, our parents change, our kids change.
Wow.
So yeah.
That's so interesting that you spoke about that rage that you felt and how you identified it and were able to do the work. Because I, with my twins, when I had them, I loved the newborn phase. Like I could have newborns. I could have a bunch of them. I could have them all. I could get no sleep and I don't mind. And so when I got pregnant, we chose to get pregnant really quickly again, intentionally. And so I think I was about my twins were 7 months old when I got pregnant again, against a lot of people thinking we were crazy, but we decided to anyway.
Amazing.
And I thought, I'm through the newborn phase. I was real concerned about postpartum depression and anxiety because I had struggled in the past with it. So I was on high alert and made it through what I thought was the newborn phase of, not feeling the rage, not feeling the depression, not feeling the anxiety. I felt great, honestly. And once I got pregnant again, how I showed up for my kids was horrible. I was a different person. And I was so confused because I thought, didn't I make it through the quote unquote hard part, right? The postpartum depression and postpartum rage I didn't have until I was pregnant again. And I don't know if it was considered postpartum. I don't know if it was the hormones from the new pregnancy, but that rage, I found myself, I had never, ever raised my voice at my babies ever. And the first time I did was they were like 8 or 9 months old. And I was like, what is going on? And like, this is not me. And so it's so interesting to hear your experience with that as well, because, it was something I had opened up to friends about. And I was like, who am I? I was just scared because I didn't recognize the person that I was. And so to share, I appreciate you sharing that vulnerably and, normalizing that for other moms who are either, have bonus kids, have, older kids and got pregnant quickly, or, going first pregnancy to second pregnancy. It can feel very, very scary for, if whether it's hormones or energy, I don't know. And I'd love to hear more about your opinion on that, but just how different of a person I felt after getting pregnant with my kids was scary to me.
It's terrifying. It's like we really scare ourselves, right? So,
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that as well. I think it's many things. Definitely both our energetics and our physical, our hormones, right? Like the combination of that. And our hormones affect our energy and our emotion.
Yeah.
And our energy affects our hormones and our emotions. So it's like a cycle, it's like an infinity loop of what affects what. Part of it is, I think, because being pregnant requires us to connect with our bodies, right? And to connect with we're growing a whole human.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's like kids up to the age of 6, really. It's like they require everything we've got. Like, right? There's different states that they require so much of us. And we have no space. We don't even know how to give ourselves the space to pay attention to our needs.
Yeah.
Right? There's
That
no
is
like,
huge.
there's no like, let me just go take a bath, or let me go on a quiet walk, or, right? Like, even if you have a nanny, and even if you have like a stay-at-home partner, or like whatever it is, right? It's like our brains literally change. They literally change when we have a baby.
Wow. Yeah. We don't talk about that enough. How our
No.
change. Yeah.
Literally change. You can look at an MRI scan before and after, and it's different.
Wow.
So we require something different, and we aren't set up to give ourselves what we need.
That's so good. That is so good and so important for moms to hear. Like, it's not just you having a rough day.
It's not. It's not just you having a rough day.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's we need the revolutionary change for sure.
Yeah.
And until that happens, right, we have to figure out ways to do that within our home. And some of us are, more fortunate than others, and some of us are less, and most moms they're pregnant, they still have to go to work, and they have a family to take care of. And, there's like so much that they're juggling. And
definitely.
how do we find that? So I think the main thing that I strive for in my own life, and the main thing that I love teaching, is how to do that without changing anything externally, right? Like there's a way to bring awareness into our bodies.
Yeah.
There's a way to be present in our body, right? Without leaving it, without being 4 miles away, but
Yeah.
being really grounded. And it doesn't require it. It's not easy, but it's simple, right? It's how do we breathe and connect? And a lot of it requires us to deal with our fears, because
Yeah.
if we pause, or even while we're driving, if we're breathing, and if we're, because that's the time where we're sitting, we're
Yeah.
breathing and we're feeling our being present in our body, there's this fear that I'm going to lose control. Everything around me is going to crumble down
Yeah.
if I pause.
Wow. That's so true. And everyone feels it. I think that's important that you brought that up, because I think a lot of the times I feel like that and I forget that this is normal. We're working moms. I mean, we're doing a lot. I'm not the only one out here who feels like things are going to crumble if I take a break, go to girls' night, don't go into the office on time, whatever it may be. So I love that you said that as such a normal thing, because I think when we're in our own heads, it doesn't always feel normalized.
Yes, I mean, even something as simple as you got your sweet baby right now on you and she's crying at some parts of this,
Mm.
even that, like, that's normal. It's
Yeah.
like, let's normalize that. Let's normalize that it's gonna be okay if there's a background noise that belongs to another human. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's okay. If it
Yeah.
makes somebody uncomfortable, they gotta deal with their discomfort. It's not on
Yes,
you.
exactly. And it's so funny because when you say it to me, it's hard to accept, but I can say it to somebody else so easily. Or like in the grocery store, my husband is like, I don't like to go to the grocery store with the kids because, sometimes they make noise. I'm like, who cares? Are kids making noise in the grocery store? That doesn't seem like a big deal to me. But in this setting, I get heightened and I change my expectations. It's like flying on a plane. I think, you know, kids are people too. They're going to make noise. They're not going to act perfect, but sometimes it's hard in that moment to remember that. But it's, easy to tell somebody else. It's just hard to hold ourselves to the same expectation that we hold someone else to, because I think we're the hardest on ourselves.
Very, very much. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
use support networks and friends to remind you, right? Like to constantly remind you, hey, like, hey, Alexia, it's okay if you
Mm-hmm.
let this go. It's okay if you just, all right, perfect. If your hair isn't done, or if your baby's crying, or if your kids run into the room screaming, or they need something in the middle, like it's okay. And I remember when I was like in the beginning, this must have been like 11 years ago or so. My son was, he probably was like, I don't know, he was probably 4 or something, 3 or 4 years old. And I was
Mm-hmm.
on with a client and I put on a movie for him. And I remember he didn't like what he was watching and he needed to change it. He was in the hallway, like crying, and I felt so uncomfortable telling my client, can you hold on a second? Like, let me just go change this for him.
Yeah.
And all it needed was that. Like, I
Yeah.
do it all the time now.
Yeah. Yeah. But in the moment, it was so scary.
Yeah. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
so scary. And I
Yeah.
remember being so mad at him, right? And like, the
Mm.
poor kid didn't do anything wrong,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
he's just
Definitely.
4. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, that's how it feels setting boundaries too, though. I mean, I know with work, setting new boundaries can feel so scary, even though it's like, okay, this is a normalized thing. Once you do it enough times, you don't think twice about it. But it's just that new habit, creating that new muscle that we're not used to using of, okay, this feels scary, but that's okay. I just keep at it. So, yeah, I love that you shared that too about, now you do it and it's normal, but the first time it was so scary. So, for a mom who has kids, running businesses, trying to prioritize themselves and all the craziness, what advice do you have to tap into connecting with themselves, to, prioritizing themselves and not feeling guilty?
okay, so awareness. I would start with awareness. So, what does that mean? So, looking at yourself as an observer, right? Like,
Yeah.
how do you move about your day? How often do you put off going to pee? How fast are you peeing? Like, how quickly are you coming out of that
Personally
bathroom?
called out. I didn't pee before we started this, and I was sitting here looking at what time it was before our next meeting. I was like, I'm not peeing today. That is so funny that you just said that. You just called me out. You're like reading my mind. That is so
Yeah.
funny. Wow.
Yeah.
No one has ever called me out for that before. Except
You're
my
welcome.
husband.
You're
And
welcome.
my assistant is like, everyone will wait, go pee. I'm like, no, I don't have time. That is so funny. I've never
Always have time to pee. We should always make time to pee, right? It's our body.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when we're peeing, pee. Like, don't like half pee and half run out of there. Like,
I do half pee often. Wow. This is so insightful. I am.
there.
Wow.
Do it.
Well,
Like,
yeah. Wow. I've never realized that I have peed until this moment. My gosh, you're blowing my mind. Wow. Is this a common thing? Do a lot of people struggle with this?
I don't have time to do this. Right? Like, and it's what is it? What is the message that we're sending our body?
Wow.
I don't have time for you. I don't have time for your basic human need.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell our kids all the time, go pee, go pee, go pee. And we see them. We see them like not doing it, right? Like they'd rather play their game
Yeah.
than go use the restroom.
Yeah.
They don't want to miss out. But oh my God, like with my daughter, I never had a problem with it, but with my two boys, it constantly bothers me.
Yeah.
Right. And like, so it's easy to be bothered by other people, but like about me, I've like practiced this. This is an important one for me that I practice all the time. Like if I need to pee, I'm going to go pee.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, that is, so since you had such a strong reaction to that, I think that is like
Tip of the month. I'm like blown away. This conversation has been so amazing. I feel like we could talk for like 10 minutes.
Yeah, I know. You're like, let's talk for 20 minutes. It's been almost an hour.
This has been so fun. So for somebody listening who wants to connect with you, where can they find you? What do you offer? Give us the rundown.
My website is quantumdoctoror.com, and I offer one-on-one sessions. I also do group classes. And I have a vision statement course that's like a at your own pace kind of thing. I will probably be offering some more group stuff, especially when it comes to body learning, like listening to your cycles, listening to your physical symptoms, because that is my favorite topic to talk about. I'd say send me an email. If you're curious about this, I am happy to talk. I'm happy to share. I'm happy to listen and to connect that way. I'm also on Instagram, quantumdoctoror.com or quantumdoctoror hashtag or whatever that is called.
We'll link it all in the show notes.
Thank you.
Oh my
I
God.
think that's it.
Okay, well, I will link everything down below. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being part of the Mom Boss Central community. You're amazing. This conversation has been so fun, and I can't wait to dive into more of all that's going on with my body, including my aversion to going pee based on time.
I'm so excited for you. Thank you so much for having me here. It's been so fun.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Mom Boss Central. I hope you found inspiration, encouragement, and maybe even a few new strategies to rock your mom boss journey. Remember, you're not alone. We're all in this together. And don't forget to share the love with your fellow mom bosses. Make sure to join the community at mombosscentral.com. It's completely free and a space to connect with like-minded women. All you have to do is sign up and start connecting. Until next time, keep pursuing your passions and living authentically. We're so happy to have you as part of the Mom Boss Central community.